So let me start this by saying, hello, my name is Jacob Connock. I am a men's online fat loss transformation coach, and I specialize in working and helping men who travel fairly frequently or very regularly, all along the spectrum, but men who travel fairly often with work and therefore struggle with consistency, struggle with their routine, and can't make progress and achieve the fat loss and muscle building that they want because they find it too hard. Some of the guys I work with have, a couple of hours commute to the city on a day or two a week. Some people are away for a week at a time. They're abroad. They're getting trains to and from meetings all over the UK for a day at a time. Basically, anyone that has a routine that makes them feel like the progress they want is impossible. That's where I come in. So this video, my first proper YouTube video, is going to be about one of my fat loss phases, right? So it's going to be a fat loss phase I underwent when I was working abroad in France, and all my fat loss phases were self-inflicted as a result of taking bulking phases too far, and I really struggled with being self-conscious as a result of being very skinny as a teenager up until my mid-20s. During these muscle building phases, I put on way more body fat than was necessary. But at the time, I was willing to take it that far because I was so self-conscious about being skinny, and I was desperate to put on as much muscle as possible that I was okay to take it that far. In hindsight, and now being in the position that I'm in, I wouldn't do that again. And hopefully by me sharing this, you'll be able to relate to some of the feelings and the struggles that I went through whilst I was traveling a lot here, there and everywhere with my work, but still managed to see it through and follow the plan, follow a process that got me to a goal that was where I was really happy with my body fat percentage. Now, a lot of my content on Instagram and the coming content on this YouTube channel does target men who do struggle with some or frequent travel with work, right? The struggles that come along with that. But this can, any men can take value from this because anything that disturbs your normal routine or takes you away from somewhere where you have complete control over your food and training, you can relate these principles and processes and thoughts and feelings to that situation. But I do just feel extra strongly about helping the men who don't feel like it's possible because of the lifestyle, the work-life balance that they live. So I want to ask you a question. Have you ever felt hopeless on your fat loss journey? Trying to make a transformation, trying to better yourself, trying to improve your health, but just feel lost? This is why I'm making this video, so I can hopefully kind of shed some light on the feelings and mindsets that I had throughout the whole process, because leading up to when I started this fat loss phase, I didn't think it was possible. I was very concerned that I wouldn't be able to achieve decent results because there was a lot of things out of my control and my routine was all over the place. But I decided just to give it a go all in, and make the best of the situation that I was in. So just before I started the cut, my life at that stage where I was the highest body fat I'd been, the point where I decided enough was enough. I had been working in Cyprus in the summer of 2022, and I'd been gymming hard following a ACL reconstruction on my right knee. And maybe I used that and the fact that I was just desperate to put on as much muscle as possible as an excuse to eat a lot. And I mean a lot, like I ate a lot. My cooking facilities that I had in my apartment I was provided with were very, very basic. And as I was working in hotels, I was quite often eating in hotel buffets, 3 meals a day. And so I finished that season, end of October, early November 2022, carrying way more body fat than I was comfortable with. My leg was definitely stronger, like it was a hell of a lot stronger. I worked really hard. And I didn't feel like I wanted to cut or I could afford to cut at any point during that time because I couldn't afford to lose the strength that I was building up to protect my knee, to protect my new ligament. But during that season, as I was putting on body fat, there were moments where I vividly where I noticed signs of putting on weight, right? I vividly remember sitting down on sun loungers and that feeling of when your belly it folding over your shorts. It wasn't nice. And I remember being super self-conscious, surrounded by a lot of people a similar age and a lot of girls that, of course, as a mid-20-year-old, I wanted to impress. I knew then I was moving to France to work for the winter. And although I knew I was putting on body fat, I didn't really want to do anything about it because I didn't want to do anything that might jeopardize the strength of my knee. I'd see myself in the mirror daily, but it's still, that was my priority at the time. Whether that's right or wrong, it was, because I wanted to get back to being able to do the sports I loved, skiing and football and hockey and all this kind of stuff. Then there was a moment, right? A moment that, and I think in general, all men are very stubborn, and it takes something, some sort of external feedback to give them that kick up the arse, to give them that sign that they need to do something, right? Whether that is somebody's feedback, a comment from a friend or from a stranger, whether that's a health scare, something at work. I think men need something that scares them into making change. Something instant. Let me know in the comments whether you feel the same, whether you agree, whether you disagree. Mine was complications with my knee, right? So all of a sudden I was getting a lot of pain, clicking, grinding, and the pain spread to other areas like my hip and my ankle, and I couldn't do the movements I needed to do to progress. I could just about maintain the strength in my leg, but I couldn't progress it. And so I needed to see a specialist. These appointments took a while, so I basically needed a goal to work on. I function best when I have some sort of activity or fitness goal, or I'm trying a new skill, something like that. So I was looking for something to occupy my time, because at the time I wasn't doing the sports and things that I would usually do. So at that point I thought, now's the time. And to be brutally honest, I was also still speaking to a girl who I'd met that previous summer in Cyprus, and the thought of meeting her again one day looking like I was, with the body fat percentage I had, that disgusted me. That worried me. It scared me. I was around 93 kilograms here, around 205 pounds, and I felt awful. No energy, defeated, like I was fighting a losing battle, swimming upstream with a 50-meter waterfall behind me, you know? And I'm sure all guys, especially those who travel for work, have felt like that. They felt like they're getting further and further away from their goal, from somewhere where they want to be, from their ideal position or physique. It's a snowball effect, and like anything, it builds momentum and you just feel like you're fighting that losing battle. And so during the start of that season, I decided to get in shape. But before that, you could ask the team I was working with. I wasn't sociable. I made excuses. Quite often, I used to say that I needed to recover. I couldn't drink. I needed to do everything I could to make my knee recovery go as quick as possible. And part of me thought that, but also part of me used that as an excuse because I didn't want to go and socialize with people. I didn't want to be around people because I was so self-conscious about the body fat I was carrying. One thing that I knew was a good thing, which is sad saying it now, but being in a cold environment in the mountains in southern France, we got to wear a lot of layers, which was good for me because I knew my clothes didn't fit as well as I wanted them to and as well as they had when I bought them. And one thing I did notice was I had a lot less patience. I was much more irritable. And I can only put that down to the lack of self-confidence, and not wanting to be around people as much. It was more so not wanting to be around new people, making that effort to socialize. I just had no energy for it. Now, it's important for me to say though that, you know, everyone starts and finishes at a different point, and you shouldn't compare yourself to anyone else. You know, somebody's end goal or somebody's nearly end goal might be somebody else's starting point. You know, somebody maybe starting where someone else is complaining. Like, you can't compare yourself to other men. All you can do is compare yourself to a previous version of yourself. So what I really struggled with during the time whilst I was doing this job, and what I kind of almost didn't even bother doing this cut because I was worried this would stop me being able to make any progress and I'd be wasting my time. And hopefully not necessarily the situation, the actual specific scenarios, but like the feelings and what I was worried about. Hopefully these things you can relate to in your own type of work travel or situation in general. So I was working in a ski resort in a small village at the top of a mountain in France, right? First kind of thing that wasn't ideal was the supermarket. Like in those little villages, you have tiny little supermarkets that have very limited stuff. And plus it's all French stuff, so it's all different products. The packaging is all in a different language. But what helped me was just sticking to the same things, right? The same foods, the same meals that I knew would get me to my goal. I am somebody, and everyone's different, but I am somebody who can stick to the same thing until I get really bored and then I change something up. So I'm happy to rinse and repeat. And the people that say they need to eat different things all the time, in the grand scheme of things, a fat loss phase isn't for long, right? And if you want serious results, sometimes you've got to do what you've got to do. And in a situation worse, you're in somewhere unfamiliar, maybe you just have to be consistent and eat similar things to make it as easy as possible. Like, I mean, do you want the progress or not? I was also working sporadic times, so mornings and evenings or daytimes, long shifts. It was all over the place. So I knew that prepping and meal planning and fitting the meals in where I could was important. So 9 times out of 10, I got that done. I knew that was potentially the make or break. And so I made sure to be organized enough to get it. And when I wasn't able to get it done, because we're not all perfect, I made sure to pick up things whilst I was on the go that I was able to track, right? It's very easy to go into somewhere to get a takeaway and just kind of not even think about it. But for example, going into a supermarket, you can see everything has labels on it, everything has numbers on it. You can scan it, you can input it into your tracking app. It's really as simple as that. Just making a choice, a conscious effort to make something, to do something that you feel is easier to align with your goal. And then another problem was where I was working. So, 2 days a week-ish, 1 or 2 days a week, I'd be in a bus for 3 hours minimum each way, sometimes up to 6 or 7 hours. And I'd be doing shifts at an airport for like 12 hours with minimum breaks depending on how busy it was. And also 3 days a week, I'd be driving to other villages, other resorts, 2 hours driving each way potentially. So basically I was here, there, and everywhere. And I knew these challenges could hinder my progress. But if it meant that I needed to wait a bit longer until I had my next meal, lunch fell at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, because I was out all day and I wasn't prepped, then so be it. I felt a bit hungry for a couple of hours. I tried to drink some water. I tried to do things that would help that. It was either that, and because it was so regularly that I was doing it, it was either that or I didn't make progress. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Even if it meant I spent less time socializing, these kind of things, I was determined in that moment to not let that affect my progress, my situation affect my progress. So I was going to do what I needed to do. So how I felt during the process, the fat loss process, I mean, initially, of course, the weight came off like fairly quickly at the start, right? You're eating more food, you have more energy, and you start noticing some changes, and that gives you a boost. And in my circumstances, as I said, it was winter, so like you're out wearing layers, so not often people can kind of see your physique. But it was when a couple people at the gym that I'd got speaking to started to notice and make compliments that I had clearly lost a bit of weight, a bit of body fat, and that gives you a serious kick of adrenaline and a serious kick of keep going, you're doing something right. And I remember very well after every gym session, I would go into there were these little shower rooms that had a mirror and the lighting was really, really good. And I would take my top off and I would look at myself after every session. And to be fair, it probably made me look better than I actually did, the lighting, but that was enough to keep me going. And it gave me a little boost every single day when I would go in and look at myself. Seeing the abs creep through was something I hadn't had for a long time, so it was awesome. I actually hired a coach for this fat loss phase because I wanted to focus on the things that were kind of out of my control. the things that I had to manage, like my travel and the days away and the meal prep and stuff. And I kind of wanted the workouts and my calories and macros there, so I didn't have to think about it. I could just get sent it and follow it, just to make things as easy as possible for me to give me the best chance of making some progress. But I did this on the cheap a little bit, right? I was a bit stingy. I didn't pay for his full program. I just paid for the workouts and the macros and getting them adjusted weekly. And I used to message him all the time with questions and asking him why this might have happened, or why he set me this, and whether he could tweak this, the workout, I haven't got this piece of equipment, could I change this slightly? And he had to keep reminding me that I haven't paid for that service. And in hindsight, not being able to ask and get clarity and have something explained, or tell me why the weight didn't go up this week or didn't go down this week, sorry, it's definitely not something I would do again. If I was to invest in a coach again for a serious fat loss phase to make some serious progress, I would definitely do that full service, that one-to-one service, because there were a lot of moments where I was unsure and I just needed someone to reassure me. And I needed somebody to, because that took brain power. It took time away from me focusing on the things that I needed to, because my lifestyle was a bit here, there, and everywhere. And during the process, I definitely found myself becoming more sociable. Like I feel comfortable enough to go out for meals, whereas before I made any excuse not to rest and recover at home, but really just spend time on my own. But knowing that I was making progress, knowing that I was doing the right things, I could allow for that meal out in the evening, and I would make sensible choices, high protein, high volume, low calorie foods. Often it would be like steak and potatoes and veggies, something like that, which is super nice with a little bit of sauce. I adjusted the food leading up to that, and I was good to go, and I felt confident, and I was starting to feel confident going out and socializing and being in those environments again. And going out and doing that at the start of my journey just like wouldn't have been something I even would have considered, because I'd be thinking I'm so unhappy with my physique that I need to be as strict as I possibly can on myself, because I can't afford to not make as much progress as I can. And the mindset of being as strict as I can at the start, it kind of worked for me, because it helped me build the habits that I then used and were helpful when it came to having a little bit more flexibility, like a little bit later down the line. It also meant that the results I had in the first month were quite considerable, and so I had as much motivation from those results that I possibly could to drive me into the later stages of the fat loss phase. And of course, there were difficulties along the way. I got thrown a few curveballs. One day at the airport turned into 3 days and 2 nights, and I had no clothes, I had no spare underpants, no toothbrush, no nothing. And what did I do? I just had to do the best I could. These things happen. I made as good choices as I could at the buffets in the hotel where we ended up staying. I picked up protein shakes when I could, instead of the normal kind of like pastries, airport snacks that you would usually pick up potentially. I just made positive choices. There was also a gym in the hotel we stayed at on the first night. And so I went to the gym. I didn't have any clothes. I went and trained in my uniform, and then I wore that uniform again for the next 2 days, minus the sweaty underwear. It was a very basic gym, and so I just did what I could. I tried to do a full body session because I didn't know how many days until I'd be going home at that point, and just get the blood pumping, and I felt great as a result. And if I'd used any of those reasons as an excuse to not do something or not make those positive decisions, that'd be the beginning of a negative spiral that I have experienced in previous seasons. And as somebody who travels frequently or very rarely with work, and that adds difficulty to a fitness transformation, you are dealt a series of hurdles that you need to jump over. Things that come up that weren't expected, or the things that are coming up and need to be navigated. Those hurdles you'll either jump over or you'll crash into them. And if you crash into one, it's then a hell of a lot harder to build enough momentum by the time the next one comes to jump over that and continue. And likelihood is you again feel like you're swimming against the tide with a big waterfall drop and it's dragging you towards it. So as a result of that situation, although my routine was derailed, My progress wasn't. And in those situations, it's just important to do something, not nothing. And then you're going to end up a lot closer and a lot more likely to be in a calorie deficit still and continue your fat loss than if you do nothing. And what I told myself and reminded myself in those difficult moments was that I've chosen this lifestyle. I've chosen a job that takes me away from home, that brings up these challenges. The routine isn't ideal for fat loss or muscle building or fitness in general. So I'm lucky to travel, see these different countries and meet different people all the time. So I got to take this on the chin. And if I really want the result, then I need to do something about it and do the work anyway. But along with the process, I still absolutely had days of doubt that I was doing things wrong, that I was not making as much progress as I should, that I was losing muscle, that I was losing weight too quickly or too slowly. And the biggest one, am I going to like what I look like at the end of this? Have I built all of this up and then actually I haven't really built enough muscle to actually like my body when I don't have a lot of body fat? And looking back, having somebody and a group of people all with similar goals to support me, to bounce off of, and to put those negative thoughts or concerns at bay would have been just what I needed to make those concerns and those moments of difficulty last 10 minutes instead of affecting me in work and socially for days, and potentially not able to focus or give my customers and clients enough attention. So how I felt afterwards. So I came down to like 82 to 83 kilograms, right? About 180 pounds. And that was the leanest I'd ever been. I'd only been gymming for like 2 years since kind of all the gyms started to open up after COVID. So maybe 2.5 years. So I wasn't long into kind of building muscle. And I'd been making a lot of mistakes for sure. It's a learning process, right? Whilst during that time of starting the gym. This was me when I started the gym. Like when I hadn't had no experience, when I gave it a go. And so I definitely have put on muscle mass since I started the gym. But I'm not big by any means at all. But the difference in mindset, in confidence, in my outlook on life, the difference was astronomical from the start of the fat loss phase to the end. From the start of gymming and the start of the fat loss phase to the end of this cut. I dropped around 10, 11 kg and there was a lot to deal with along the way. And I was proud of that. And if you travel regularly or not that regularly for work, or you don't, in general, there's lots of stuff to navigate during a fat loss phase and stuff to manage. And getting to the end of it and seeing the results is a seriously big accomplishment. Life's hard sometimes. And if you chuck in flying abroad for a couple of days with work or getting trains all over the UK for meetings for a day at a time or working half the time at home and then commuting and living in the city in London for a week at a time, going back and forth, with or without staying in hotels regularly, stopovers in airports, all of this kind of stuff, it adds levels of difficulty, but it's still possible. And I wanted to now socialize more. I wanted to meet friends. I wanted to put myself out there. That positivity bled into every area of life. And I knew I could accomplish it. I knew I could stick to something. I knew I could be disciplined over a long period of time. And that's a big one. That stands me in good stead for a lot of things in life now. If you can be disciplined for a significant period of time, the skills required to do that can be used in every corner of life. And I knew I was heading back out to Cyprus, to a different part of Cyprus for the summer again. And I felt 10 times more confident with regards to talking to women, with regards to taking my top off on the beach. I actually looked forward to those moments because I knew this newfound confidence would stand me in good stead. And I'd likely thrive in those moments instead of shy away. Whereas before, I would have absolutely dreaded. Life just gets a lot better when you aren't carrying excess body fat and you're lean and throw in the extra struggles with work, doing it against the odds, doing it against what a lot of other people in a similar situation can do. It feels that much better. And I'm a very competitive guy, right? And I think most men are, whether you admit it or not. And winning the fight against myself, the fight against my job, against my routine, That was the best competition I'd ever won, and my trophy was the new body I've built. A big thing for me as well was seeing myself topless in the mirror. Before I started the fat loss phase, I hated it. I literally hated it. And the thought of someone else seeing me with my top off was even worse. But now, it drives me, it motivates me. I see myself having made this progress and feeling and looking better. And it shows me what I'm capable of. And now looking at myself in the mirror, I can see and I can picture the journey that I went on. And that proudness and fulfillment that I feel, I want every man to experience it. And that's why I do this job. That's why I coach men. Physically and mentally, it will improve your outlook. And more men should go on this journey and achieve this goal, because there's nothing better. And to conclude, in your most difficult moments with your physique and your body, I really cared what people thought of me. But during the process, as it went on, and as I get older as well, you realize what really matters and what doesn't matter. The most important thing is that what you are doing helps you, and it makes you feel more confident and fulfilled, and fundamentally improves your quality of life and builds skills and habits that will benefit you in all areas of life. The better I felt in my skin, the less I worried about what other people thought. And as a result, the better person I think I became in general. So I hope from my experience and the travel and the routine struggles, if you are struggling to navigate these kind of things, or anything that kind of affects you in a similar way, I managed to do it, and it's so possible. And I have clients at the moment doing exactly that, making awesome progress despite their struggles. And I always remember this quote: the magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding. And this for me couldn't be more true. It's like the things we put off, the things we procrastinate, the things we know will benefit us. When we do them and we overcome those obstacles, that's where the real results happen. And when you get to your most confident and your leanest, that's when you really start to feel the magic. So if you found this in any way relatable or in any way useful, regardless of whether you struggle with travel for work or movement around for work, then I've done something right and I've said something right. And if you're ready to overcome those struggles and do something about it and make that step and start to see progress finally, then drop me a message over on Instagram at Jacob Connock Coach, and let's talk about it. Or click the top link in the description and book in for a consultation call with me, where we can go over exactly how I would help you and a little bit about your specific struggles. And I just want to say, don't wait any longer before you make that change, before you take that first step, because all you'll be doing is delaying and waiting longer till you really feel that magic, when you feel your best. If you've come this far, it's my first YouTube video. I'd really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, hit like, drop any comments, and I'll see you in the next one.